Chapter 3 begins right where Chapter 2 left off. With the insignia key now in hand, I can escape from this area and return to the village. Along the way, I free a dog from a bear trap. It's important to note that I knife the bear trap rather than releasing it manually. Doing it that way will still free the dog, but it will prevent it from showing up in a boss battle later. The dog's presence in that fight causes some problems that I want to avoid. I don't have the heart to just leave the dog in the trap though, so thankfully I don't have to with this method. Something worth mentioning about that enemy in the pink shirt. If he's killed before he runs away, it will stop an upcoming group of enemies from spawning. There's no way I could reach him with just the knife though, so I'm going to have to deal with those enemies. This is the house I neglected to enter in Chapter 1. I'm going to use the first small key I picked up in the previous chapter here. It's safe to be here now since the enemy that would have been in the closet is no longer present. Next, I move towards the shotgun house. Crossing a certain line on the map will initiate a cutscene where the tower is blown up. The debris from that causes a blockade. I want to head back to the farm area, so I'm forced to take the long way around. The group of enemies I mentioned before have spawned in as well. They are called colmillos, but I'm just going to address them as dogs. There are 4 of them and I'll be dealing with them on the way back. There are other enemies in the area in addition to some traps to be wary of. It's nothing too difficult though, just have to watch my step. The only reason I'm going back to the farm is that there is a treasure that I missed. Back when I did Chapter 1, I didn't know it was possible to reach this treasure with the knife. I thought it would be cool to show this one off. It gives me a little more money to work with too. There's also merchant requests in this area for destroying blue medallions. It's not possible to get all of them with just a knife, so I don't bother trying. I put down a save before returning to the village since finding the dogs can easily go wrong. Now that I'm back in the village, I'll be taking a specific route to fight the 4 dogs here. I've tried several different approaches, but the one I'm showing off has been the most successful. I want to avoid fighting more than one dog at a time, so the best course of action is to lure them towards me individually. I have to pick my spots carefully. It's risky enough fighting a single dog with a knife. Taking on multiple at once is just asking for trouble. That's all it takes. Wait for it to lunge and then stab to knock it out of the air, putting it into a state where it can be finished off with a knife prompt. It's simple in theory, but it can be annoying in practice. The timing on the stab while it jumps is strict. Doing it too late will result in the dog damaging Leon before the knife connects. Do it too early, and the dog won't get knocked down. I'd hardly call it consistent, but it's still my best option for eliminating them. I wasn't able to separate the final 2 dogs, but I can halt their aggression by entering this house. Doing so will cause them to start leeching back to their starting positions. Then I try to lure one of them into the bear trap. As soon as one gets caught, I run back inside the house to cause the other dog to leash again. This gives me the time to stab the trap dog until it's defeated. For the remaining dog, I just use the knockdown method to take care of it. Those are all of the dogs for now, but there will be a few more to deal with later in the chapter. There are still a few enemies left in this area and I'll be able to clean them all out with stealth kills. This is a frontal stealth kill. When Leon is spotted by an enemy, there is a brief grace period before he's considered to be in combat. It's still possible to get stealth kills during this period, so that's something I'll occasionally be making use of. These last 2 enemies have their back turned, which makes them easy to pick off. That small chest is a DLC treasure. I'm not using any kind of DLC in this run, so those will always be ignored. This underground path was closed off in Chapter 1, but it's open now. It doesn't lead anywhere new, it's just a shortcut. I came here now only to grab some loot. I will be back here later though. The insignia key lets me get inside this building. According to the map, this is the town hall. This is where all of the ganado went after the village fight in Chapter 1. There's a path through here that leads to the church. There's some loot to grab along the way. One in particular is the Viper. A few specific boxes house these snakes. It's simple enough to avoid taking damage from them just by quickly stabbing them after breaking the box. There's a merchant request for selling 3 of them, so I'll be picking them up when I see them. Now at the merchant, I'm just going to sell off some treasures and other items before repairing my knife. I also purchased some more power upgrades. I'm getting pretty close to maxing it out entirely. Still, power isn't that important yet. It's not really going to come into play until Chapter 4. Most of my strategies prior to this point would still work with less power. I just get the upgrades now since I have the money for them. This is where the church is. There are 2 enemies in the area that I can easily take out with stealth kills. There's also a simple merchant request for destroying tombstone emblems. I walk while approaching the shed before running inside. The enemy here would have gotten alerted by the sound of running if I didn't slow down to walk. There are a lot of enemies in the game that you can just run up behind and they won't react. Or at least they don't react quickly enough before they get stealth killed. But there are a few that do react, so I just have to be mindful of them. Fortunately, the church requires a special key to get inside. I'll have to find that key eventually. No choice but to take another route for the time being. There's some loot to pick up behind the church, and there's another door around the side to investigate. This room mostly has a bunch of files in it. There's a typewriter at which I'm going to put down a save. I don't want to risk having to fight the dogs again. There's also a locked drawer in this room which I'll come back to much later. This room has a trapdoor that leads to the next area. There was a gate that I walked past which would also go to that area, but it's locked. It can be unlocked from the other side, but there's no reason to do so. The gate will already be open the next time I come back here. This is the bridge area, and there are quite a few enemies here. I start by running parallel to the shed to hopefully cause the Molotov enemy to set himself on fire while I take out the enemy on the ground floor. I don't want to go inside the shed yet, as that will cause an additional enemy to spawn. There are more enemies on the way already. For these enemies, I'm going to try to parry their attacks to set up a melee prompt and then reposition so that Leon's kick will knock them off the bridge. It's a good way to get rid of them without spending much durability. I'll try to do this to some more upcoming enemies, but it's more finicky than it looks. Here's an example. My kick should have sent him right off the bridge, but instead he gets flung in a ridiculous angle. Luckily, I'm able to nudge him off the edge by running into him. 2 more enemies will spawn after climbing the ladder by the shed. I jump back down right away to go deal with them. Now that just doesn't make any sense. I'm not able to push her off either. It's very silly, but thankfully it works properly on the second try. There's another Molotov enemy too, but she managed to set herself on fire as well. Admittedly, they aren't the smartest enemies around. Fire itself isn't all that threatening to Leon either. Although it will put him in a stun animation, it won't actually damage him unless he stands in the fire for too long. There I demonstrate that you can actually parry the Molotovs. The trajectory after doing so is a little random. Sometimes it can be sent directly back to the enemy that threw it, while other times it'll just go off to the side. It didn't help me out much here, but this guy is easy to take down anyway. That right there is basically the bread and butter technique of knife only. A parry followed by running behind the enemy to do a combat execution. This is an instant kill setup that will always work reliably for the entire duration of the game. It's one of the most powerful tools in my arsenal. The only problem with it is that it's a bit costly on durability. It may not be evident now, but it will add up quickly if it's overused in high volume encounters. For now though, I'm fine to use it to clear out the remaining enemies. It was surprising to me that I successfully hit that particular parry on the pitchfork since I had my visibility cut off right before the attack landed. I didn't expect the camera to briefly go behind the wall like it did just now. Muscle memory saved me there. That's all of the enemies here. I used that instant kill setup on just 4 of them and it drained a good chunk of durability. That should illustrate how careful I have to be with it. That technique also works with spare knives, so upgrades aren't needed to make use of it. I should mention that this bridge area is another one that's easy to run through without fighting any of the enemies. It's quite consistent too with how the enemies are placed. If I left them all alive, they would even disappear by the time I'm expected to come back, so not much to gain in fighting them, but I thought it would be more interesting to do that anyway. There are 2 dogs here. Thankfully, this is the last time I have to deal with them in this chapter. They're also easy to isolate since the other dog is way off to the side. I'm just going to use the same strategy of knocking them out of the air and executing them. That second dog had some unusual movement, but it still worked out for me. This is my first attempt at fighting these specific dogs, so I'm glad I didn't mess it up. Otherwise I would have had to do the whole bridge over again. I didn't want to backtrack to save just because of these 2 dogs. I guess it's worth pointing out that the dogs can apparently kill crows by running into them. There were a lot of crows in that area. If I was allowed to use a flash grenade, I could have easily taken them all out to get a ton of loot. Unfortunately, that's not a luxury I have available to me on this run, so I just have to let it go. It's the usual business with the merchant. Sell my treasures and excess items, repair the knife, and get any upgrades I can. I get enough money to max out the power stat. All that's left is the exclusive upgrade, and it won't be long until I'm able to afford that too. I'll put down my next save after I'm done here. I'm pretty far ahead of the schedule as far as upgrades go, especially since I'm selling healing items and fighting enemies for more loot. But there's no need to be as stacked on upgrades as I am at this point in the game. The deadline for maxing out the knife would be before the boss fight in Chapter 4. That can still be achieved without selling heals and engaging in much combat as long as enough treasure is collected. There's plenty of money to go around, so it'll work out. This area is called the fish farm. My goal here is to find a fuel canister for a boat. There are a large number of enemies in this area, but I'll be able to use stealth to thin most of them out. This brute can be easily killed with stealth. Although it does drain more durability since he's a special enemy type, it's worth the cost as he would be quite a nuisance if I had to fight him normally. There are some more enemies I can take care of using stealth. I have to be careful with this spot though. Up on a higher ledge is an enemy with a crossbow. I don't want to get spotted by him yet. More enemies spawn when a certain threshold on the map is crossed. All of them come in at different angles, which makes maintaining stealth trickier. That's a good showcase of the grace period I mentioned earlier regarding frontal stealth kills. That guy detected me fairly early, but I still managed to get the kill. Unfortunately, another enemy has spotted me, so I'll have to fight them normally. I try to avoid using the instant kill setup I talked about earlier since I need to preserve durability. There's the enemy with the crossbow. The second he spots me, I'm going to lose the ability to use traditional stealth kills. As long as he is alive and aware of my location, Leon will be put into and remain in combat status. There's no way I can avoid being seen by the crossbow enemy on knife only. There are another set of blue medallions in this area for another merchant request. Once again, it's impossible for me to get all of them with only the knife, so I won't bother trying. I don't want to have to deal with any mutations, so I use the knife to stop it from happening. It's honestly unfortunate how that worked out. If I used the instant kill setup, the durability cost would have been slightly less than what I spent just now. It's alright though, I still have enough to work with. This enemy was not aware of my presence at all. Despite getting a stealth kill and knife prompt, it actually did the combat execution instead, which drains more durability. That's what I was talking about regarding the consequences of the crossbow enemy spotting me. I can technically still use stealth against other enemies, but stealth kills as the game defines it are currently unavailable. These next two enemies spot me. I probably could have avoided this if I didn't go for that treasure I just picked up. It works out for me though. I'm in a position where I can't be hit by the crossbow guy, and neither of these enemies mutated after being killed. Another thing about being in combat status is that frontal stealth kills are not possible at all. If I tried to do that on an unaware enemy, no knife prompt would appear, and I would more than likely take damage for it. I believe this is due to there being no frontal combat execution equivalent. Those don't exist unless the enemy is on their knees in a specific animation. It's important to be able to recognize how the available options change between combat and stealth states. As I'm going around, I'm making sure to be careful of the crossbow guy. These enemies will be a huge source of frustration later in the game. Not a big deal right now though. There are 2 bomb traps in the area to be mindful of. I may have been able to use them to kill some enemies, but I elected not to try setting that up. Doing so would have put me in a more vulnerable position to the crossbow guy. There's another combat execution in place of a stealth kill. The crossbow guy can't even fire on me in this part of the map, but he still hasn't lost sight of me. Thankfully, that's the last enemy to worry about for a little while. A few more will spawn in later, but they won't pose much of a threat. There's the fuel canister that I need. With that, I can finally make my way out of this place. There's also a good amount of loot to pick up. Quite a number of snakes too. It's a decent place to stock up on healing items because of that, as well as there being a bunch of fish swimming around. Of course, that's of no use to me since this is a no damage run, but I still pick up the snakes when I see them for both the merchant request and just to sell them. I should point out that snakes and fish will drain durability if you kill them with the knife, but rats and crows won't. It's a strange inconsistency, but at least the durability consumed is negligible. I can finally get rid of this enemy. I specifically want for him to lower his crossbow before running in. That gives me the most time to get stabs on him before he can open fire. Since he's standing right next to a bomb trap, all it takes is one good stun to cause him to recoil right into it. Being on this higher platform has caused the last wave of enemies to spawn in. They don't know where I am though. Having the high ground will let me get the jump on them pretty easily. I can safely wait for them to disperse around the map before I make my move. I'm ready to go now that they've spread out a bit. One of the enemies is another crossbow user, so I definitely don't want to get their attention. I won't have to either, since they're wandering off in the opposite direction of where I'm going. There's one enemy along the way that I'm able to get an actual stealth kill on. This enemy was guarding the ladder that leads out of this place, so I couldn't avoid being spotted by him. Since I'm on my way out, I just put him down with the instant kill setup. I have only a sliver of durability left after this whole sequence. I could have easily broken my knife much earlier if I used it recklessly. Anyway, that'll do it for the fish farm. The remaining enemies are out of the way, so no need to concern myself with them. Overall, it's straightforward with the right approach. It's also another sequence that could be ran past entirely without much difficulty. The layout of the map makes it simple to sprint through it while ignoring every enemy. This area also becomes empty in the next chapter, so coming back later for the loot is an option too. I wanted to show off a stealth strategy and get the loot in one go, so I did so instead. This is the boat that needs the fuel. It's going to become a significant gameplay mechanic shortly, as well as in the next chapter. This is an optional puzzle which I can't solve right now, but I'd like to point out that it doesn't matter what order these pieces are placed in. Each piece has a designated spot, so the final solution will always have the same steps regardless of how the pieces are put in. Heading back to the merchant now after looting this whole area. There was another kitchen knife to grab too. Definitely don't want to miss out on any of those knives. I'm saving them up for later. As usual, I'm going to sell my unnecessary items and treasures. I trade for a yellow diamond so I can use it in the elegant mask. I had some other gem combinations available to me, but I felt that it was better to use just one of each color. Selling that along with my other items is going to give me the last chunk of money I need to get the exclusive upgrade on the combat knife. I normally don't have enough money to get it this early, so it's nice to have that in my arsenal already. The exclusive upgrade multiplies the attacking speed of the knife by 1.5. That might not sound like a big deal, but it really does make a difference when it comes to DPS, or damage per second. The speed also helps with getting stuns more quickly. As good as it is to max out the knife, it's also unfortunate in a way, because it means that I'm already as strong as I'm going to get for the majority of the game. The enemies and threats are going to continue getting stronger, whereas I'm not. It sounds bleak, but that's what makes it interesting. This is Lago. The key to finishing this boss fight quickly is understanding the harpoon throwing technique. Speaking in PS5 terms, I press and hold L1 to ready the harpoon. As soon as the aiming line appears, I let go of L1 and start mashing the R2 button. This will make Leon throw the harpoon as soon as possible, and he will immediately sit down afterwards. When he sits down, the camera will zoom out. That's when I press and hold L1 once again to repeat the whole process. Pressing it before the camera zooms out will significantly slow down how fast Leon can throw the next harpoon. The idea is to reset after every harpoon throw, rather than holding the button down continuously. It's just way faster, and this technique is what makes it possible to kill Lago in one cycle. I only hold on to the harpoon in two instances, when I need to throw the harpoon farther, or whenever Lago goes under the water. In both cases, I still make sure to let Leon reset after every throw. It's also important to aim for his open mouth when possible, as that will deal a lot more damage. Understanding these particularities is necessary to prevent the fight from lasting an eternity. That's not an exaggeration either. Lago is designed to regain health at specific points during his fight. It's a massive headache, so I strongly recommend learning the techniques to deal with him quickly. That's going to be it for Chapter 3. It's actually quite a bit easier than the first two chapters. It's possible and easily doable to run through every enemy encounter here. It's another case where I make things harder for myself by choosing to engage with the enemies. But I still think it's more interesting that way. Things will heat up a bit more in the following chapter. A new enemy type will appear and I'll take on the first true boss fight of the game. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video for Chapter 4. Take care.